What's going on, guys? So in this video, we're going to be going over how to build a shared assistant for your own company that can answer any questions about your FAQs or internal documentation. So here's how the chatbot I built looks like. So I just asked a random question like, what's our payment structure look like? It answers it, obviously, like we price per seat, blah, blah, blah. And it also includes a citation of which document was used to answer the question. And also we can view it here to look at it. I'm gonna show you guys how to build all of this. I'm also including all the code in the description. But yeah, just to show you guys how it works. Unlike traditional chatbots where they use RAG, I also added this feature where we can select which documents that we want to ask about. And if I could do this again, I would probably add a description of each file. But let's say we're on the sales and we want to ask for like from the demo to close process. But we could say like, what is the process like after we do the demo call? Like the demo, what's the first step? Let me ask that. And look at that, it answers the question. It's basing this answer solely off of this single text file. And obviously this is super easy to do with using the Google Drive API to just have all your SOPs, your FAQs in one Google Drive folder or multiple Google Drive folders. And we can just ingest everything from there as well, okay? But yeah, let's get into how this is actually done. So the first thing that needs to be done to build all of this is actually having a file name definitions like CSV folder. And you can do this on Google Sheets, obviously. So we just have a file name, so FAQ customers, onboarding text, customer onboarding demo to close, and a description of each document. Okay, and a description of, and then another column for the description of each document. Here it's super important to actually have the description be very well fleshed out and give a really good understanding, like for an AI to understand of like what this document is for. Reason being is we're not going to be using a traditional RAG approach for this chatbot. So how it works is there's a user query that comes in and optional. The user can select which documents to ask about. If documents are selected, we just ingest those selected documents. We answer the questions using the context or said documents, and we just return the answer with the reference documents that was used to answer the question, okay? Similarly enough, if no documents were selected, we use an LLM to identify which documents was the best fit to answer the query. And so in order an LLM to do that, we have to make sure they have good descriptions for each of these files because these descriptions is what the LLM is gonna use to actually pick the correct files. Heads up too, I actually did not make this idea myself. I saw this tweet from this guy, Jacob Pozel. I thought it was genius, and I can't believe I didn't think of it myself, to be honest. Is instead of doing RAG, just ingesting the entire file instead, it just makes life 10 times easier. What I like about this approach is that there's no embedding or chunking needed compared to using a traditional RAG approach. And don't get me wrong, using RAG is useful, especially when like the files are like gigantic. But in a case where you're working with like SOPs where they're not like stupidly long, like they're not like 50 pages plus for the most part. They're usually like, for the most part, like SOPs are like a couple pages to 10 pages max, right? Like it's not a huge deal, especially with how large the context windows are for a lot of models nowadays. So yeah, no embeddings or chunking is needed. And as what I like about this too, for this use case of within a business with answering questions about SOPs, FAQs, is I think if you guys have ran a business before, at least for me and a lot of my friends, like SOPs get updated like all the time. Shit changes all the time with SOPs, right? If you change the SOPs, that means you have to re-chunk, re-embed everything. It's just a pain in the ass. Next thing too is that we can easily just drop all this stuff into like Google Docs, into a shared folder. It just makes things easier, especially if you don't have a technical team, because you can just drop any new SOPs inside like a shared folder and we can ingest it all at once. Third, kind of what I just mentioned, there's zero sync delays because the changes in the documents are reflected instantly. We don't need to reprocess or re-index the content. Stable, transparent results. So since the full source content is now provided the model, we don't have to worry about like, are we providing the right context? Like we do have to make sure like we're providing, if no documents were selected, we do have to make sure the LLM is selecting the best documents. But like that's a very different and much easier solution than making sure we're providing the correct chunks, especially when we have like numerous documents to deal with, right? And again, it makes it easy. Instead of using like a vector similarity search, which again complicates things, especially if you're not very technical, this metadata routing makes life a lot easier given that you're just able to write fleshed out descriptions for each file. And having those fleshed out descriptions makes it easier on the AI side to pick the correct documents based off the query, right? Another huge benefit too, especially if you aren't technical, is that all you need is just Google Drive and just like an LLM API, just like on ChatGPT or some shit. And then the next thing I want to go over too is the actual prompts used to like do all this. So here's the prompt to route the documents. And to be honest with you, I didn't spend too much time on this, like the actual prompting, but it's just like you're an assistant to answering internal team questions using provided SOPs and documentations. Below are 1 to 3 full documents. Use only the content provided to answer this user's questions. It's the context and then the question and then just some like structuring. Okay. Similarly enough, the prompt to answer the question, this is like super basic. Again, I didn't put too much time into this, but yeah, you guys can screenshot this. And again, I'm providing all the code inside the description anyways. And in terms of like turning this chatbot into like an actual like internal tool that you can like share with your team and shit, the big thing I like too about using Gradia with all this, just again, because it's easy, is that it always gives you a public URL. So I can even go on incognito or even like I can send this to anyone, right? This link. And if we go on there, it asks for a username and password, which we set in our environment variable. So that password I did, username and password is Tyler and password. And then you can just share this with your team. And this is usually good for a week, as it says on here. But if you can, and to upload this on Gradio permanently, you can just go on Hugging Face and do that. I actually have another video. I'll link that in the description too on how to do that step by step. Yeah, guys, that's just pretty much a high level overview of how I would build a shared assistant to answer questions about your FAQs, your internal documentation. That also makes it very easy to share with your team as well. But yeah, thank you guys so much and hope you guys have a great day.